Hey everyone, Pastor George here with today's episode of A New Thing. I forgot to walk in. Usually I walk in. Forgot to do that this morning. That's what happens. I'm gone for 2 weeks and my whole thing, everything I'm trying to do, falls apart. So that's just how it goes. But I wanted to talk about something a little bit more positive today. Not that I always talk about negative stuff, but generally, like, I'm reacting to things that are happening, and when your reaction nary to stuff, you tend to kind of see the worst in things. And so I actually wanted to talk about what I did over these past 2 weeks, really last week, because I think that one concerns a lot more in the sense of our denomination. Because when I talk about our denomination, it's usually in the negative, which is not unearned, right? But I do think it's also important to talk about certain parts of the denomination when it's very positive. And so, as you know, I was gone for 2 weeks. The first week was in California to do doctoral work, so I was doing doctoral work there. The second week was going to the Fellowship Conference, Fellowship National Gathering. The Fellowship is a community within the PCUSA of confessing churches, and it was really just uplifting to be there. I had been to their regional gathering. I went on a kind of on a whim a few weeks ago, not weeks ago, months ago, back, I want to say kind of late 2023, maybe the fall, like October or something, October, November. And I really liked it. And so I said, you know what, I should go to the national gathering just to see what it's like. And it was really nice. It was a really good time. Bailey went with me, so you can also ask her about it. But for both of us, it was very spiritually uplifting. And we did learn some stuff. Some of that I'm going to be bringing to you. Learned about AI. I went to like a breakout session on a kind of AI in the church and what Christians should think about it. I'm probably going to do a new thing episode on it at least. I would like to teach a class on it, but I really don't know enough about it to confidently do that outside of like my own thoughts. But again, I don't know anything. All right, I'm not a computer scientist, so for me, it's my own thoughts are not that great. But I'll probably do a new thing on it because I have some access to the slides that they had there. So the presentation's already made, right? What else do I have to do? But it was a really good time. I'm going to talk a little bit about the conference today. I don't know how long this video is going to be. It might be on the shorter side, which is fine. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the conference and the main theme and kind of some of the things that were talked about. Unfortunately, I don't have access to any of the videos videos of the plenaries and stuff like that they talked about there. That would be helpful to kind of help you guys see, but you'll have to take my word for some of the things that were talked about. But yeah, if you want to go, you should come with me next year. I'm probably going to try and go again. Anywho, let me show you guys what I have. So, firstly, oh, not that. There we go. Not that, it's the worst thing in the world if you see my way out here. But, just the theme of the conference was this. It was in but not of the world, engaging culture and thriving in faith. That was the name of the conference. And kind of everything in it revolved around that. And I want to first talk about the phrase, I guess that's the title, in but not of the world, right there. Probably something you've heard before. It's used in a lot of Christian circles. A lot of times, I heard it, first time I really encountered it was in college, right? And so we're supposed to say we're in the world but not of it. Basically, we have a duty here. We are obviously here physically, but we are not primarily of the world. And so a lot of times this can be misused, I think. Sometimes it can be used to disengage from important stuff. Sometimes it can be used just as a throwaway term that doesn't really mean anything. But I wanted to kind of actually look at the first, because I always do this with scripture, right? First look at the verse where this is taken from. It's come from John 17:14 through 19. So firstly, I should say that phrase, in but not of the world, is not a actual Bible phrase. Like, it's never said that. Like, there's certain places in the Bible where people pull that idea from. this is probably the primary one, but there are other places that will do that. But this is what the NIV translates this as. So this is Jesus speaking in the Gospel of John. He's actually praying to the Father, right? And he's praying for the disciples. And he's doing this in order to teach them kind of how they should be. This is after he's washed their feet. So this is after the Maundy Thursday command and the importance of loving each other and how they're supposed to act after Jesus is gone. So this is the prayer for his church. He says, I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, for they are not of the world any more than I am of the world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I am not of it. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. For them I sanctify myself, that they too may be truly sanctified. So again, right there, right? This, you see the language, like it's not as though this phrase "in but not of the world" is entirely wrong, but you can see that it's not stated in such a pithy way, right? Like a really easy, snappy, like eye-catching way, right? Jesus actually says they are not of the world, even as I am not of it. And I think it's important that he's speaking about his disciples here, right? So he's talking about his disciples, and the baseline for the disciples is that they are not of the world, right? That's kind of assumed that when you become a Christian, you immediately step into that. For most of us, we kind of view it as a process, right? That like, well, I'm in the world, but I'm trying to get out of it. And it's like, no, like your mentality should be at the start to not be of the world. But here's the thing, is that Jesus says in 18, as you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. So we're not of it. We have been sent into it. And what does that mean, right? So it's and that's why you have this underlying tagline here, right? Where it's like engaging culture and thriving in faith. Because one of the big things they wanted to kind of talk about is that when we are in whatever context, right? Context is king. You're going to hear that all the time, especially these days. It's very trendy to think about context, but it's always been important to think about context. Is that wherever we are, right? Like we have a very certain culture, and usually we like to think of culture as like this big monolithic kind of American culture, and there certainly is a part of that all the different groups that in the United States, whether it's geographic or ethnic, like there is definitely something that many of those groups share that we could say, oh yeah, this is American culture. But you just have to travel around the United States a little bit to realize that there are kind of cultural differences that are worth noting, and doing ministry in those places would change the way that you would attack an issue or talk about something, or like how would you do this ministry. So for instance, right, I was in California, and my class would start at 8:30, and I was at a hotel about a mile and a half from campus, so I would walk because I didn't want to get a rental car to save money. So I would walk the mile and a half there and back every day. It was great. I need my 10,000 steps. I mean, look at me. Come on. Best thing I can do for myself is walk. So I would walk to and from class. And the thing is like, so that's about a 40, for me, that's about a 30 to 40 minute walk, depending on kind of pace and stuff like that. So, and how many red lights I hit, how many walk signs I got. So anyway, I would leave my hotel at like 7:30 because I like to get places early because I don't like to rush, and plus, gives me a moment to relax. And so I would leave my hotel at 7:30, and I leave my hotel. I walk down the Colorado Boulevard, which is kind of in the center of Pasadena. It's where they do the Rose Bowl parade, for people who know what the Rose Bowl is. And 7:30, okay? I think that is, to me, like, and maybe this is our culture from New Jersey, I think that's like morning, but like, not early morning, not like 5 or 6. That's like, most people are up and going to work, or going to school, or engaging, right? It's like 7:30 is when Edison's high school is like that's when all the parents cram into our driveway into the street and I can't get in the parking lot, right? So 7:30 is like a normal time to do a lot of things. So that's not the case in California. Because I would be walking and I'd be like, you know what, I could use a coffee. Um, Maybe there's a coffee place somewhere along the line down here, right? And there would be cafes, but you'll never understand. They didn't open until like 8 or 8:30. Could you imagine in the Garden State or like the New York metropolitan area a coffee shop like what do they probably open. I mean, I don't ever go this early, but I wouldn't be surprised if lots of coffee shops opened at like 5:30, 6 a.m., right? At least. I mean, I know bagel shops are open I know at bagel shops like the workers arrive at like 3:34 to start making stuff because it takes a while. So like bagel shops are open probably like 5:36, right? So but no, everywhere in California, at least in Pasadena, right? In Pasadena, nothing open till 8:30. Like even coffee places. It was bizarre. It was like a ghost town. You would never guess that city had tens of thousands of residents. Now I think it's a little pumped up because they do have universities and stuff there, but like still crazy, right? Crazy that they have that was an interest, and that's like a contextual thing, right? And that's like everything was slower in California generally, in a lot of different ways, and that means doing ministry in that context means that you have to work around that culture, that more laid back culture that we don't really have here in New Jersey. Just like if you were to come from California here, you can't just plant a church or plant a type of idea that would work in California in New Jersey and expect it to be successful. You have to match it to the culture that we're at, right? And this is a normal thing. We would expect this kind of anywhere. So culture is really important, right? So engaging culture, right? We talked a lot about that at the conference, how to do that well. Also, I mean, I don't think also how to challenge it, because oftentimes we think, oh, we just need to match it. No, right? We should challenge the culture as well. I think there's lots of ways that we can do that as a church, in the United States, but also in the Northeast and even in New Jersey specifically. Like there are things that we can do or things that we can say that are important and are true, and therefore engage the culture, but I don't want to say a negative way, but in a more challenging way. And that's important. So we talked a little bit about that, but also really what this group is like. It isn't even though it's made up, I'll say, of like the more what I would consider orthodox or traditional, conservative. I don't really like that word, but if that's the word you want to use, churches in the PCUSA, which is the minority of churches, like it's actually not a political or lobbying group, right? It's mainly meant to be a community, which is why it's called the fellowship community. And so for me, it's always important to be reminding that there are people that are like me, because you would never know if you didn't go to something like this, right? About 400 people there. It was both pastors and elders of different churches, and even non-elders, like just other people that wanted to go. It was really cool to see everyone there. An enjoyable thing to see and to learn kind of about the way the church functions in different parts of the country is really interesting. See where it's kind of stronger, and stuff. It's very, very fascinating. Apparently, Washington State is very like interestingly Presbyterian in a lot of ways, which I would never have guessed. So anyway, this is the website, so you can always go to the website and check it out. This is just the national gathering. So these were some of the speakers that we had, and they have the registration fee. But something to note there, right? For us, if anyone wants to go, all these fees don't apply. I paid, and Bailey paid. We both paid, because this is an organization I want to support. But like technically, we didn't have to, because they really want to support the smaller churches too. But it's cool. We got to do some stuff. We got to hang out with people in Nashville. Like the that you should see this church that here I'm gonna look it up for so you can see it, because this church is insane. I wonder how we have to see their website is not doing it justice. You know what'll do it justice? Google Maps. Like, look at this. Let me see if I can like get a. Yeah, let's do the this view. So this entire thing right here. Like, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you see the First Presbyterian Church, the Oak Hill School, the Oak Hill Day Camp. That is all church property, and this is huge. Right, it's massive church. It's crazy, and they have a pool. This Oak Hill Day Camp is church property. Those are horse pen things. They let us ride their horses, which anyone who knows Bailey, you know she loved that. Massive sanctuary, whole thing, very impressive church that was there, and all that's just to say, it's not to say it's awesome because it was impressive. It's mostly just it was just a crazy place. I had never seen a Presbyterian church of that size before here in the United States. And so it's like, how do we? So it's nice just to hang out with people. But the ultimate question is, like, for us, or at least the one that I'm taking away, is how do we engage now? Or how, like, it really made my brain think, okay, how are we going to engage the places where we're at? And how are we going to think about being a church that is engaging the culture in a meaningful way, but is not just assuming certain things anymore, right? Because the culture has changed around us. The way that the church used to function is kind of gone to the wayside. So what does it mean, or what does it look like to be the church in a place where we are a minority group? And how does it? How do we engage with that? And in some places around the country, like in Nashville, that wasn't the case. There's so many churches there. I don't know how they all have members to support them, but somehow it happens. And it's a funny thing, right? In the South, they'll be like, "Oh, we're a small church. We only have like 300 to 400 members." And it's so that's why culture is important, right? Because in the Northeast, that's a big church if you have 300 to 400 people attending regularly. So it's so interesting, and so it's like, how do we as a church engage in that way, and that's just something to think about. So yeah, that's not too much I wanted to add on to that. I just thought it would be important to talk about kind of the good and joyful time that I had there. The worship was great. We got to Keith Getty from the Gettys. They do the hymn "In Christ Alone." He came to lead worship for a little bit, and it was really cool to see him and to see all the talent that's there. Because like in Nashville, everyone has connections in the music industry, right? Which isn't surprising. So like, there at their church, right, they have people that work in the music business and stuff like that, and even the AI thing like that I went to. There's a lot of, actually, apparently it just passed in Tennessee. It wasn't at the time, but like one of the main things that Nashville is dealing with right now is like, how do you deal with people kind of using AI, stealing music, and like protecting artists' rights and all that other sort of stuff. And they had a guy who's like from Belmont, which is a university in Nashville, whose whole thing is that. He was one of the people that came to talk to us about AI. So it's really cool to see all the industry connections and stuff like that, and to kind of see how the musical culture of Nashville impacts the churches, because like every church has wonderful music. Because it's like, there's like tons of professional musicians. Like the choir at this Nashville church, like all of them were professional musicians, which is just insane. Obviously completely unable to do that without insane budget any place else, but it's matching the culture of the place, right? It's a musical place, so people are gonna have there's gonna be lots of musical talent there. Just like, in New York City, you're gonna have lots of industrial tycoon type things, and in churches and things like that. So it's just so fascinating. And so it should make us think, like, how are we as a church here in Edison reflecting the culture of our area? Maybe we aren't, and if we're not, how do we change? Again, I mean all this positively, not like take the bad stuff, but how do we change in a way to effectively challenge and comfort the people who are in our area? Just something to think about. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. I'll see you on Sunday for worship. Peace out.